Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to another edition of Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society podcast. I'm your host, Barnaby, and tonight we are continuing our discussion on our latest episode, The Test, which is available for viewing right now on YouTube. It is Wisconsin Caps on YouTube, CAPS, and you look up Season 2, Episode 2, The Test, where we take Phathom and Derek and set them on a blind test to see if they can actually communicate with the other side. If you have not watched this episode yet, I highly recommend it. It's been out for quite a while now. So we encourage you guys to go over and check it out and watch it before you listen to this podcast, because we will be discussing in detail some of the things that happened during the podcast. So if you don't want spoilers, this is your warning. And with no further ado, tonight with us, we have Ethan joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Ethan, how are you doing?
Good, as always.
That's good. Good to know that you're doing well. And we have Phathom with us again this week. How are you doing, Phathom?
Heyo, I'm good.
Good. And joining us again this week, we welcome back Derek. How are you tonight, Derek?
I'm doing good. I'm peachy keen. I'm doing all right. You saying that?
We're all doing great tonight. Something must be wrong with us.
No, I'm just drinking my worries away. That's all I've been doing.
Oh, man. That's no good. All right, everybody staying safe out there?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Good. All right, so to recap the last two episodes, we had Derek on. We discussed, a little bit about you and how you see things, how it affects your daily life, and the way that you interpret the other side and that. And then last week we had Phathom on, and we did the same thing with her as, how it affects you, how you see things, interact them, feel the energy and stuff. So now we'd like to talk to both of you guys and kind of compare notes between you two as far as, Derek, you said you see things like a motion picture screen, and you hear the voices of the people talking to you. Whereas Phathom, you are more the energy of the people and that. So, let us start with, I guess we'll start back with Derek. So Derek, you're familiar with the whole story and everything, and what Phathom discussed last week. So my question to you is, these undos. Derek, have you ever seen or felt or experienced anything like that, or is that more something that's outside of your realm?
I've never experienced anything like that at all.
Okay, so you don't see any of the weirder stuff. You're more of a human side.
Yeah, I don't know. A spirit guy will see the same thing as an undo that's helping me once in a while. I don't know if that's like the same thing.
I don't think that's at all the same thing, but let's talk about that. You have a spirit guide?
Sometimes the spirit guy would help me. Sometimes I'm always on my own. Sometimes I'm on my own. Sometimes I have him to help me.
Tell us a little bit about more.
Well, when I was at Ethan's, I was totally on my own. He was nowhere to be found. I tried getting him to help me, but he's like, no, screw you. Like, I'm not going to help you. You're on your own. You're doing this yourself.
Interesting. Phathom, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think that if Derek's has this spirit guide, do you think it didn't want to go around the undo?
That's hard to say because all spirit guides are different. So, I mean, it's a person-to-person thing, and it's all about your personal growth and what you're there to do. So, I couldn't tell you what his spirit guide wanted versus what somebody else's wants. So,
but would you agree? You don't think that it's the same as an undo?
No, definitely not. Spirit guides are pretty awesome and really do want the best for you versus anything else. So, no, undo are definitely not spirit guides.
Derek, so tell us a little bit I'm sorry. Tell us a little bit more about your spirit guide. When did you meet him, or how?
Well, I met him like maybe 5, 10 years ago. He came to me in a vision saying, "I'm going to help you if you need it." And I don't know. He didn't give me I think he gave me a name, but I don't know if I got it right. He started telling me it's John or Bill. He won't give me the correct name. I asked him a couple times, like, "Who is this that's helping me?" He was just in the church and would not give me the right name. I'm like, "Thanks. You're not helping me here. I need your name, so I don't know who's helping me." He's like, "Nope, nothing to do with it right now." So I had to wait until he reveals himself to me, I guess. He's just being
Interesting.
ignorant about it. He will not tell me anything more. He's just saying, "I'm here to help you when you need it." Well, if you're on your own, you're on your own. I'm like, okay.
But it's a person. It's not an animal or anything.
No, it's a person, but I can't get the name. He won't give me the right name. He's telling me, "Oh, it could be, my name might be Bill, it might be John." I'm like, "Would you stop?" He gives me the right name. He goes, "Nope, not gonna tell you yet." I'm like, "What are you gonna tell me?" He goes, "You'll know when the time comes." I'm like, "Seriously, I've been doing this all my life. Come on now. I'm not playing all night long." He was pissing me off at the time.
That kind of actually seems like a spirit guide. When you're ready for the knowledge, they will present it. But until then, it's more like you have to earn it or build that relationship more.
That's why I have a spirit guide. I also have an inner animal spirit that resides within me too. That does not like full moons. I don't know what. It's because I have that inner being that does not like full moons. Every time I see full moon, I end up either A, growling, or B, howling at the damn thing. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Or I scratch at a dog for some unknown damn reason. I can't figure out why that's happening unless it's something I can't control. I do not know.
Derek, let me ask you something. Have you ever used a Ouija board?
Yes, I have.
And what was your experience with the Ouija board?
Oh, it's quite interesting. I heard, I felt like warm on my neck. That was still a blood light from some unknown source. I don't know, or from some unknown source. I don't know where it came from. And every time we use the planchette, we move our hands off, and if anybody was moving it, we can still see do some movements. And I know for a fact that you play for so long a time that if you try to play with a Ouija board or a 20, it's going to open a gateway that you cannot close. And it's going to be a bitch to close. I heard a lot of different stories about that from a lot of different people I knew.
Derek, do you happen to think that maybe something from the Ouija board came into you and that's why you're growling at the full moon?
I don't know if that's the case.
Phathom, what do you make out of this? Because to me it sounds like, like a bad Ouija board experience here. But, as far as energy and stuff goes and being around Derek, what do you pick up on this?
I mean, could it be something? I mean, from the Ouija board? I don't know. I mean, there's so many different things to do, and I mean, I've used Ouija boards, but not store-bought. I was always taught if you're gonna do that kind of thing that you have to make your own, and we always used sage and other herbs, and we also saged the area before we even used it to make sure that there's a protection there. You're basically creating a pre-veil so that the only thing that can get in is what you want. So you're not kind of hoping.
What about candles? Will candles do the same thing though?
No, I mean candles are okay. Put it this way: candles burn energy. And so the reason, for instance, why we light candles in a church, things like that, or why people light candles around a picture frame when people die is because candles burn energy, and candles have been throughout time to believe, or to be believed, that spirits can see candles because of the amount of energy they burn in such a little area. And also why when you see or have spirit activity, they interact with candles, like blowing them out, turning them on, or lighting them up, making the candle, communication with candles, having it flicker low, flicker high, to the left, to the right, that kind of thing, because it's all energy based. So candles don't really serve a purpose with Ouija boards other than to, I don't know, but it's kind of a movie thing.
So, hang on. So, Derek, I want you to just kind of hang back in there for a while, but, so Phathom, like, a candle could be used basically the same way as like an EMF detector, like an electromagnetic field. It also reads the energy in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I am interested with this whole, like, I have never used a Ouija board, so I've kind of always steered away from them. But I've heard several stories of experiences, religious experiences, and possessions and stuff. But from a skeptical point of view, Ethan, have you ever used a Ouija board, or what is your opinion on them?
Never had any interest. To me, it seemed like, a whole Milton Bradley type thing, or a device used in movies.
Yeah, I actually recently was interested in the history of Ouija boards, and they go back a lot farther into ancient times and stuff, where they would use them to communicate and everything. And they were later sold to Milton Bradley as a child's game, but before all that, they were around way before they were ever put into a box and sold at Target. So I don't know. They're just definitely an oddity. But we've gone way off track with this whole conversation.
Yeah, we did.
We want to ask a question, not me.
All right, so back on topic here. I have a question to pose to all three or four of us, I guess.
Okay.
And this was an interesting topic that was brought up online, and I didn't realize that this was a thing. But we're going to start with Ethan and Phathom, and then we'll go to Derek last. So there are people who do not have an internal monologue. So basically what that means is, like, the people who have an internal monologue, when you think about something, your mind walks through all the steps, and you kind of hear a little voice in your head telling you, this is what we're doing, etc. But there are people who don't. They don't. It's interesting because I have an internal monologue, but because you have Phathom, who's the spiritualist and the energy reader and stuff, it's interesting to see what you have, or Derek has otherwise. So, Ethan, do you have an internal monologue? Definitely. All right. So you hear basically when you're thinking, if you want to brush your teeth, you walk through all those steps.
Yep, I notice it the most like when I paint, stuff like that.
Okay. Phathom,
Yeah.
do you have an internal monologue?
Internal monologue, it's like the reconstructive computers from like Bones and CSI Miami and crap.
So you have a hyperactive internal monologue.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Derek, do you have an internal monologue?
I do, but it comes from my spirit guide itself. He gives me information if I need it, but sometimes he doesn't want to be helpful. Like I said before.
Okay, so let me ask you that. Do you hear voices in your head, like, not voices in your head, but do you hear your voice in your head, or do you only hear your spirit guide?
No, I hear my voice in my head sometimes when I'm trying to walk around looking if I'm geocaching or whatever I'm doing. It's just, I've got something going in my mind. I just think to myself, like, where do I do this? Where do I put it? Where can I find it?
Okay. Have any of you, so has anyone actually met someone who doesn't, Ethan?
Nope.
Phathom?
Not that I'm aware of, at least.
Okay.
No, but wow, they must be so productive.
Yeah. Derek?
Not recently, I haven't.
Okay. So there's videos online since this became popular on Facebook like a couple months ago, I think, and I watched a couple interviews with people that I was like a guy and his girlfriend, and they sat down and discussed like how everything between them went and stuff, and see like back and forth how they solve problems and stuff. So if anybody's interested, go look this up. It's really interesting to see that some people don't. And I was just curious. I wrote that down as a note on the last podcast to ask you guys when we were all together. I do want to go back over here to Ethan. Now you are part Native American, right?
As far as I know from what I've been told from my family.
Okay, but you don't practice or have any kind of connections at all?
Nope.
Okay. So you don't have any opinion or anything on spirit guides?
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing like that.
All right. I was just wondering because we were discussing that with Derek. See if you had any interest on that. But all right. So back this whole train back up to put it back on its tracks. You know, the whole test episode I think was probably one of our most interesting episodes, being that it wasn't scripted, it wasn't planned, it was, you know, a legitimate test. And going forward, I think that we have some good ideas of what else we can do to test other certain things. And I'm interested in working on that episode coming up too. But, Derek, as far as you're concerned, as far as this whole thing goes, is there any kind of questions or anything that you have for Phathom as to how she does what she does compared to you?
The only thing I think for me and you, when we first seen eye to eye, I think we have like some kind of connection. I don't know what it is. I don't know if you know it. Unless we have that kind of spiritual connection that we, and I've had that in a spirit medium, have that one-way connection, you know?
Mm-hmm. Totally, that's solidarity.
I don't know if we had that one connection, if we just know it, or we don't know it. I don't know. So I just want your take on it, better. If you agree or disagree, that's fine if you disagree. I have no problem with it. I just want to know what you think, if we had that connection or not.
I mean, it's definitely there, you know. I mean, it's when you find another person that has any sort of anything, you know, it's you know, it's there. You recognize it, you see it, and you're just like, oh, hey, what's up?
Yeah, like when we're in that one episode with the train tracks, we both had that like weird, like we saw something at the same time. That connection, I knew something was connecting right there, but wasn't totally sure, but was halfway, like 50% sure on that connection, you know, until I asked you tonight.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, the thing is that we have to think we should figure out a decent way to figure out how we can sort of boost off, because that's the problem, is I don't see, like, for instance, on the train trestle, it's like, I mean, I can see things sometimes, but the fact that I'm seeing more things being around you means that there's potential, that there's something there, there's like a circuit that's being fired off between us, which can happen when you get people together that can do certain things, and then accidentally it's like a crossover, and then you start getting I don't know, it's like crossing the beams. And then, don't cross the streams. And so it's like you get that kind of action, and then you both start experiencing things that you normally wouldn't, because you're basically right there with each other, and it's like, oh, well, energy's just the universe is like, well, you're fine, you're together. We'll just make everything happen.
I think it's just quite interesting how we connect like that, though.
I would like to point out that in the Burlington Woods, when we had the whole group with Mary, we had the most EMF, or the highest EMF readings was that night when we had the group of, what was it, like 13 of us or whatever. and we had the most energy in that area that night because of all the people that were there. But
Yeah.
Phathom, is there anything that you have a question for Derek as to like the way he works?
Let's see here. I don't know. I guess I'm so excited. I've been, raised to just like accept other people and what they can do and stuff, that it's just like I don't really question anything. It's just sort of like, oh, you can do that. That's awesome. I'm cool with that. But I do wish you would use more sage, bro. You gotta sage off. That's my only concern. You gotta sage off sometimes.
Be cleaner in the way you work, I suppose. Yeah.
But not to find where it's at, though.
Yeah, well, it's just a safety thing, Gotta clean off in between stuff because, man, we work in a invisibly dirty world. Everything's so dirty.
So, Ethan, you were present at all of this, as opposed to either of them because we did them separate. So, what is your whole takeaway from this whole thing? And is there anything that you have a question about, or anything, being the skeptic of the group?
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
No specific questions, but I would like to see more, and I need to see more consistency before I can fully change my opinion.
Is there any test that you'd like to see? I mean, like we were talking about earlier tonight, is there any idea that you have that you'd like posed to these two?
At least 3 more blind shots.
Okay.
Ooh, fun. What?
Sounds good. So it sounds like we're going to have the test part 2.
I would think it'd be worth going into.
I definitely think so. I mean, we have a lot more equipment now too, with the REM pod and stuff, and we can play more with that. So definitely. All right, guys. Is there any final thoughts from you, Ethan?
Nope, not off the top of my head.
All right, Phathom.
No, I'm good, man.
Derek.
I'm all good, but I got one thing. If everybody's out there listening, please subscribe to our channel. We need the subscribers.
Awesome, man. Yep. Subscribe, like our Facebook, visit our website.
Our videos.
Yep.
Ask us questions.
Or report an encounter by going to our website, too.
Yep. All right, guys. With that, I want to thank you all for listening. This is the final episode of the test sequence. Until next time. So look forward to watching more. If you've enjoyed the test and the discussion about the test, then make sure you like the episode and support us on YouTube. And send us your thoughts. What do you want to see us work on? What would you like to see Phathom and Derek experiment with? And what do you want to see us prove or disprove with their abilities or anything? We'd love to hear it. And if you've had an encounter or a sighting of anything, feel free to email us. If you have questions for any of us in particular, send us your questions for Phathom and Derek and Ethan or myself or Luke or anybody else on the team. So you can email us at wisconsincaps@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Barnaby.
I'm Ethan.
Phathom.
I'm Derek.
And thanks for listening. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. To find out more about cryptids, anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, visit our website at wisconsincaps.com. That's wisconsincaps.com. There you can find links to our YouTube and Facebook pages. You can also submit your sightings and encounters. And don't forget to check out our online store for t-shirts, DVDs, and more. If you have had an encounter with something unexplained in or around Wisconsin, we would love to hear about it. You can send us an email at wisconsincaps@gmail.com, or to submit an anonymous report, visit our website and click Report Your Encounter on the main page.